Privileged to welcome distinguished Academy Award-winning cinematographers Mr. Alan Haim and Mr. Robert Yeoman to this press conference. Let me give a brief bio about our distinguished guest on the dais. Alan Haim was raised in New York City and graduated from the City of College Film School. He then became a sound and music editor on several television series and later began working in theatrical films, of first being The Prawn Walker. He had a career that has encompassed about 40 films for movies and television, the most recent being I Saw the Light in 2015. Johnny Jones, which was premiered at the Toronto Film Festival in 2010. Mr. He has done 4 films with Nick Cassavetes, The Notebook, The Alpha Dog, My Sister's Keeper in 2009, and The Other Woman in 2013. He also did several films with Bob Fosse, Lenny, All That Jazz, for which he won an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, and the American Cinema Editors Eddie Award. All That Jazz was included on a 2012 list of the best edited 75 films of all time that was compiled by the membership of the Motion Picture Editors Guild. Mr. Haim also co-produced the award-winning The Cutting Edge, The Magic of Movie Editing, which is being used as a teaching tool in film schools all over the world. Thank you, sir. Welcome to this conference. And we have with us distinguished cinematographer Robert Yeoman. He was born in Pennsylvania and grew up in the suburb of Chicago. He received his BA from Duke University and Master of Fine Arts in Film Production from the University of Southern California. His first break into feature film was shooting second unit director of William Friedkin's To Live and Die in LA. This led to many independent features, most notably Gus Van Sant's Drugstore Cowboy, for which Robert won a Spirit Award for the Best Cinematography. Robert has shot all of Wes Anderson's live action features, receiving a Spirit nomination for his work on Moonrise Kingdom and an Academy Award nomination and BAFTA nomination for the Grand Budapest Hotel. Other credits include Bill Pollard's Love and Mercy, Wes Craven's Red Eye, Raman Kapala's CQ. Robert is a member of American Society of Cinematographers and the Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts and Sciences. He had conducted a master class here at IFFI 2016. I welcome you to this press conference, and of course we have joined with the director of Film Festival, Sri Sandil Rajan. I welcome him also for this press conference. Thank you. Now I request Mr. Alan Haim to make an opening statement, and we'll take this press conference forward.
Cold like that? I have to make an opening statement? Okay, well, I think I speak for Robert and myself that we're very happy to be here at the Film Festival and to take part in it. Everybody has been incredibly gracious to us and taken pretty good care of us. And the classes, my class, and actually I went to Robert's, were well attended, and the people seemed interested and asked many interesting questions. And you go.
Want me to say something?
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, this is my second visit to India. I did a movie here about 6-7 years ago called The Darjeeling Limited, which we shot up in Rajasthan. So, in a sense, it's a homecoming for me. I had never been to Goa before. And it's a real pleasure to come back and experience the Indian culture and the energy that is here. And I've been trying to get out to explore a little bit of Goa. I haven't been so successful yet, but I'm going to try while I'm here. So I'm happy, and thank you so much for having me here.
I suppose that you have a lot of questions for them. Please take your mics, and they're here.
My question is to Robert. How was the experience while directing Ghostbusters?
Well, I was a cinematographer, and it was a lot of fun. I've worked with Paul Feig, the director, on 3 other movies, and he's a very sweet man, and we have a very wonderful atmosphere on the set. We were blessed with 4 wonderful actresses who were just a joy to be around, constant laughing, And the way Paul likes to work is with a lot of improv. All the actresses come from comedy, and so he likes to just let them get into a scene, and all the other actors as well are come from improv comedy, and so the style of film is very different than most films because we shoot the script, but then the actors are encouraged to just take it in other directions, and we always run 2 cameras, one on each actor, or in different directions. We call it cross-shooting, and you know, we had people like Chris Hemsworth come in, who was a real sweetheart, and it was just a real fun shoot and difficult, you know, but at the same time, I think on set we had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs, which is always nice.
Hi, this is Fazan from Delhi. My question to Sir Alan. Being a master editor, so you would have taught thousands of students across the world. So how was teaching here in India? How was the experience teaching the students, the learners over here in India?
Teaching the students here in India.
It was. Oh, sorry. It was quite excellent. In Los Angeles, my organization, the American Cinematographers, we were on a program every Saturday, just the day before the Academy Awards, where we have all 5 nominees, or sometimes as many as 7. And they are questioned by a moderator about clips of film. They bring one clip from their movie, and we question them, and then we open them to audience questions. And for 15 of the last 16 years, I've been the moderator of this. And the questions here were excellent and to the point. Sometimes when you're answering questions in a situation like this, the students tend to ask very particular things, like how did you go about doing this? Not so much why, but physically how. They'd like to talk about the technology. And my class here was really, they were much more interested in the content, I think, and the emotional content, which is, when I do a movie, that's what I'm interested in, the emotional content. The equipment is just tools. Film, digital, I think it's just tools.
My question is for Alan and Robert both. What is your impression about the Indian films? I hope you must have watched Indian movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly Satyajit Ray has been an influence on the world, I think, in his films. And, you know, we have studied those films, you know, in America, as everyone has in the world. When I was here in India last time, we were in Mumbai, and I was fortunate enough to go to a Bollywood set and watch them actually shoot the scene. It was Abhishek was in the film, and it was a real treat for me to see how the people worked, and just the dance numbers have so much energy, and just you know, it's I think too the street films are films that really appeal to me in a lot of ways as well. People go out on the streets, and India has such a vibrant color palette here, and the light and everything is so different than in many parts of the world, and I think it has a very special kind of, from a cinematography standpoint, it's like you can't really go wrong when you're here because there's so many beautiful things to photograph. So I've always been very appreciative of that as well, you know. I just recently saw a movie, I was at Camera Maj, called Lion, which was, it's an Australian movie, but it's about a little boy, an Indian boy who gets separated from his parents and ends up in Calcutta, and they put him in an orphanage. And I won't tell you any more in case you see the film, but it was so well done, and it really kind of captured to me what my impressions are of what India is, you know. So for me, having been here and spent time here, I just really enjoy seeing it and trying to get the vibe of Indian culture. It's a fascinating thing for me.
And for me, when I grew up in New York City, there were many, many places to see foreign films, but we don't get too many Indian films in America, I don't think. Certain neighborhoods, yes, actually, near where I live, there are a large Indian community, and I was kind of surprised to discover they run a great many Indian films, mostly without subtitles, I think. But I went to City College of New York, and Jim Ivory, who worked with Satyajit Ray, had gone to school sometime before me, and came one day to show us Patha Panchali. And we were just knocked off our chairs. Never seen anything like that. Years later, I was asked to work on a film that Jim did, produced with Ismail Merchant, of course, because they worked very closely together. And it was an American comedy based on a poem about a bohemian party in the 20s in New York in Greenwich Village. And they asked me to come in and make it move better. So I was working with Jim, and we were getting along very well, and he said to me, I said to him at one point, how is it that with your career in making really beautiful, slow-paced movies, why are you doing this film? It just seems so wrong for you. And he said, well, they asked me to. And I thought it would be interesting to see if I could make a party kind of a film, a very active film. And we worked together, we made it pretty good, but it never got much of a release. It was called The Wild Party. And yes, yeah. So, but apart from that, my experience of Indian film is pretty small. I mean, I saw one this year in the foreign film competition in Los Angeles, the Academy foreign competition, the official entry interrogation.
Yes,
Which,
yes, interrogation, yes.
yeah, which was extremely brutal, and I found it, I guess it's based on a true story, I found it a little hard to believe, but other people have told me that this was very true, and I was kind of shocked by the brutality, but the dancing never happened. When I go to an Indian film, I always expect it to burst out into dancing, and this burst out into beating mostly. It was cruel. And then I saw, 2 days ago, I saw 2 Indian films here. Umbati, I think, is one of them. Maybe I've got that wrong. But about a woman who was raped, and Unata. Oh, sorry, close. I was very tired. I'd flown in the night before. And then another film, both of which were very interesting, very moving, very emotionally involving movies. And I like that. I like that in filmmaking.
I have a question. In the film circles, there is a famous anecdote that says that writing is human and editing is divine. Based on your experience, to what degree you agree with that?
What did you say?
Writing is human?
And editing is divine.
Editing is divine.
To what degree you agree to that?
Well, I love the idea. And sometimes editing is spectacular. When I started my career, I was very lucky. I worked on a couple of musical films in New York, and then I met with Bob Fosse. We did a musical television show together, and I did a film called Godspell based on a play that ran forever and is probably still playing in high schools somewhere in America. And I thought, then I did Network, and I did all that jazz, and I thought my career would just go from one wonderful film after another. And then I woke up one day and discovered it doesn't work that way. The business, sometimes either you make a mistake in what you pick to work on, or something that seemed to be very good does not quite make the transition from the script to the film for various reasons. So yes, the important thing I think really is writing, because if you've got a good script and good actors, it's very hard to mess it up. Well, that was for me, I guess.
You want me to just address that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cinematography is divine too.
No, I just add on to that. Between a cinematographer and an editor, there should be always a race. There's something about us. You shoot something and he cuts it.
Yes.
So how do you always manage with this? Because sometimes something which you feel was very good shot, perhaps the editor drops it.
I learned to give that up a long time ago. I started out working in an editing room, and I encourage all cinematographers to learn what they can about editing, because that's where the movie is essentially put together. And I learned, and Alan and I were talking about this earlier today. I mean, when they cut the movie, they'll go for the best performance of the actor, oftentimes, if not always, and you know, you just have to learn that, you know, it's not all about the cinematography, you know, it's about the story and the writing and the performances, like Alan was saying, and when you put the movie together, if it's in, many times you can see a movie is just a lot of pretty pictures, but it goes nowhere, and I much prefer a film that has a lot of emotion and tells a really great story. Maybe it doesn't look as good. So, you know, we shoot the movie the best of our ability, but then we hand our footage to the editor and the director, and it's up to them to take it and, you know, make something, a great story out of it. So, you know, I give it up. I don't really have an ego as far as that goes. I don't sit in the editing room and say, oh, you didn't use that shot, or why did you cut that out? I mean, I never really do anything, you know, I don't do that. You know, I mean, I figured when I go to the editing room, I keep my mouth shut. If someone asks me a question, I will give my opinion, but you know, that's his world, and I respect that, you know, so.
Could you share with us your experience of working with Wes Anderson?
Sure. Is there any specific kind of
Your memoirs with him, your general experiences.
all my experiences?
Yes.
Well,
which you can share.
you know, I've been working with Wes for a long time, and from his first movie on, and I've certainly witnessed his growth as a filmmaker, and you know, I consider him a close friend, and it was lucky for me that we immediately kind of hit it off on our first meeting, and we saw things similarly, and you know, he can be very intense, and he has a very distinct vision, and you know, but I appreciate that in a filmmaker. He's very decisive. You never. Anytime I ask him a question about anything related to his film, he never says, I don't know. He knows very quickly what he wants to do. And, you know, I work with other directors who don't have a vision, and we go and we shoot 2 cameras, and we, you know, shoot all kinds of things, and then they give it to the editor, and they kind of figure it out in the editing room. But I prefer to work with a director like Wes, who has a really strong vision of the film from the very beginning, and I think you end up, in many ways, with better films that way. So, but if there's anything specific you want to know, I could certainly answer it. You know.
I'm Arun Kumar. My question is, what are the recent trends in editing, the cinematic language, and where do you see the trend is shifting? How do you see it evolves?
The trend in editing? You want him to answer? He's the editor. What you answer?
Sure. Well, we were talking about that because of, I started working on film, sprocketed film, a long time ago. And in 1994, I decided that if I didn't learn how to use electronic equipment, I would be, in effect, training dinosaurs. It would not be a viable way to make a living. And I was too young to retire by a lot. So I happened to be offered a film in San Francisco, and the deal was I was going to teach my assistant how to work with film because he knew how to work with electronic equipment, and he would teach me how to work with the electronic equipment. And I found it quite amazing because the physical act of touching film, I used to regard film as almost a plastic medium, like sculpture. or a piece of wire, a piece of metal, you could bend it. And you can bend it a lot. You could force it, push it, and then at a certain point the wire will break. And I felt the same way about film. You can go, I still feel the same way. You can go too far with something and you have to pull back, or you can go very far with it and see how far you can push the audience. So the trend lately, and you mentioned this, because of the electronic shooting, we get enormous amounts of material in, enormous amounts of material. Directors rarely say cut anymore. They just keep shooting, and they don't interrupt, so there are no slates as we used to have. It's very hard to find where the actor said a particular line, because they'll say it several times, they'll pick up things in the middle. So it's physically, it takes a long time to look at all this stuff, and at some point you have to look at it, all of it. But to do it and still make a deadline is very hard. So most of the people I know pick the best thing they could find as they move along through a take. They pick it out, put it in, and eventually, if it doesn't work in the long run, or if you think there might be something better, when you have spare time, you look and find other things. It's much more flexible than film. We can do all kinds of special effects, and we can do them on our electronic machines now. They're getting better and better. My problem is I don't want to do all of that stuff. I mean, we used to have color timers who would time it. Now they want, and the cinematographer would be there with the timer. Now they want editors to do it on the Avid editing machine. They would like us to mix, the producers that is, would like us to mix the soundtracks and go into the theater right off the editing machine. And we are not mixers. We try and edit a picture and then get the units together, get the composers and the music in and put it in the right place. But then when you have to start doing the mechanical nuts and bolts work of getting a film ready for the theater, there are a lot of specialists who do that. And they should do that. There are some editors who like to be involved every step. I want to be on it till the end of the picture. But I don't really want to have to finish a picture myself. I don't want to be the guy who puts the last coat of paint on the building. And I know you complained about this the other day.
Well, I did. I find that more and more decisions are being made in post-production now that used to be made on the set. And I'll give you an example, things that can be done that we never would have done before. If you have a camera out there and they're shooting a shot of me and Alan sitting here, they could literally, and we're talking to each other, as long as we don't intersect each other, they could literally, if the camera's locked, they could put cut it in half, and I could say something, and they could use a totally different take from him, and that was something that just was never possible before, and so it does open up a lot of possibilities in a post-production world, and so many decisions, even the image are being done in post now, and in my class yesterday I was speaking about this, how the cinematographers now have to learn more and more about post-production because so much is being done there now, that what used to be done on the set, and particularly with effects. I remember when I started shooting movies, there was maybe one visual effect in the entire movie, and now there's hundreds oftentimes, in America anyway, and so you have to really be on it to make sure that, the vision that I originally intended is translated to the final film. So many cinematographers is not just working on the set, but learning what goes on in post-production because so many decisions, and it's going to keep going in that direction, I think. More and more decisions will be made in post. I never used to shoot green screen, and now it's pretty common in America when you're doing people in cars. No director likes to go out on the streets at night. Well, I won't say no, but many directors don't want to go out on the streets at night on a camera car, and there's noise and there's problems. You have to stop. we just shoot it in a studio, and we light the actors in a car, and then we put a green screen, and then we go out and shoot the background plates later, and that's becoming pretty standard, I find, which I never used to do that, but now probably over 50% of the time I'm shooting car stuff, it's a green screen now,
But it's also, in a way, a throwback to when they used to do rear screen projection.
Yeah, that's true, that's
And
true.
People were sitting in a car and usually driving along someplace above the Pacific Ocean, and the road would be moving behind them and they were pretending to drive.
Yeah, yeah.
So in a way, we're going back to that somehow.
Yeah.
It looks better. We have more flexibility to it.
Yeah, and from my end,
And quieter.
It is quieter, and the director likes it because instead of riding around in a camera car at 3 in the morning, we're doing it in an air-conditioned studio. The actors are more comfortable, and from my end, I have much more control of the lighting, and so I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, there's something about the reality of being out in a camera car at 3 in the morning, but I mean, no one likes to work all night, and I think in some ways you can come back with a better image, and so I've kind of embraced that technology, So I guess kind of reiterate, so much of what used to be done in camera is now being handled in post. So for a cinematographer, you have to know these processes and get involved in them. So.
How do you think virtual reality technology is going to affect both your crafts? Because now, do you think that you will soon see a good full-fledged feature film in virtual reality, and how does it make it for you?
I'm apart from looking through goggles once or twice, I've never done a film in virtual reality. I gather there are a lot of problems with editing a film like that. I don't really like 3D movies very much. I mean, there was a moment I remember in Avatar, which was maybe the best 3D work I had seen up to that point, and I really enjoyed it for a little bit, and then you sort of want, can I get back to the story, please? I mean, I'm sick of having leaves thrown in my face. So I just try and make a good story. And most of my films, I've been very fortunate. I've had very few, I haven't really done any gigantic movies with special effects. And I really don't mind that. It's much more emotional for me to stay with a couple of people, and just a few people, and make a story.
Yeah, I agree with what Alan said. I'm not a 3D fan either. I think virtual reality is something that's going to be coming, though, and I think it at some point will get to be pretty big. I think younger people really embrace this new technology, where old people like us, we're kind of just happy with the old movies, I mean, we grew up on, and so I personally am not that interested in it, but I know that it's something that's coming, and I would assume that, in 10 years, a lot of young people will be walking around with the goggles and watching movies that way, I think it's going to happen.
No.
I request Sendil Rajan sir to make a statement. Director.
It's an honor to have both of you are at the International Film Festival of India. We had started this partnership with the Oscar Academy last year, and this year it has grown in strength, and we've had more than 6 experts coming in from the Oscar Academy. And I think this partnership is actually bearing fruit from the response we have seen in the master classes. It's all gone to packed houses, and most of the young students, I think, will be inspired from the work that you have done. And we hope that we will see you again in the festival soon, so that and some of your films also will be screened here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.